on the rebound. Embiid stuffs it.
One of the marks of a great NBA player is winning the MVP award multiple times. Only the best players can pull it off. But what about the players who haven't won the award once yet? In this video, we're gonna go into the players that haven't won yet, but might pull it off this season if they keep playing like they have so far. Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has always had high expectations since coming into the league. He was one of the highest drafted players in his class after all, and if it wasn't for other injury problems when he was coming out of Kansas, he might have been the #1 overall pick. Many believed he was better than his Kansas teammate Andrew Wiggins, who was the one that did get selected with the first pick, and based on looking at the careers of both players so far, it does look like the Sixers have gotten more bang for their buck. Wiggins, after all, has played for a couple of different teams at this point. He was drafted with the Cavs, who didn't wait long to move him to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he wouldn't work as the main piece of the Timberwolves organization either, and was traded to the Golden State Warriors in a big deal that shook up both teams. He's been a good player in the league so far, but the expectations of him being another star in the vein of LeBron James and of him leading the Cavs along with then Cavalier Kyrie Irving still ended up in smoke. The Sixers have been able to build around Embiid, on the other hand, and have made him their franchise player. He entered the league surrounded by uncertainty with a stress fracture on his back, causing him to miss both the conference and NCAA tournaments during his one-and-done season with the Jayhawks, and he would even miss the entire 2015 season in the NBA because of injury problems. There were points where it looked like the Sixers might get more value out of Embiid by trading him to some other franchise that wanted to take risk on an injury-prone player instead of keeping him. However, we're now seeing the Sixers dominate in the Eastern Conference, and one of the main factors is the faith they had in Embiid. He's become their leading scorer, and he's been putting up numbers that are comparable to some of the best shooters in the league, players like James Harden, Steph Curry, and Damian Lillard. But the big difference here is that all of those players are guards, and Embiid is a center, and it's rare to see a center putting on this kind of performance these days. We've seen plenty of great teams in the past led by big men. Shaquille O'Neal, Chris Webber, and others stand out as names that have dominated from the power forward and center positions. But it seemed like the meta had changed and the NBA had become more of a guards league. Part of the MVP argument for Embiid is that he's doing things differently and playing more like the kind of center that might lead a team to a championship back then. Philly Voice has called Embiid the most important athlete in Philadelphia right now. There's some big name contenders for that title in other sports. Bryce Harper for the Phillies and Carson Wentz for the Eagles. And even though Wentz is on the decline now, he was a part of an Eagles team that actually brought home a championship to Philadelphia. But Embiid, he has a chance to be the next big Philly star to do that. His Sixers are at the top of the Eastern Conference, and a dominating season is always helpful in the MVP race. The award is an individual one, but that doesn't mean players on good teams don't have a better chance. You just don't see the MVP award being handed out to someone on a struggling, losing team, and the good performance of the Sixers this year could make Embiid a lock for the award if they keep up that overall level of play and Embiid keeps up his own. Nikola Jokic. Another player on this list is from the center position, but this time from the Western Conference. Nikola Jokic has been one of the faces of the NBA's recent overseas player movement for a while, but this season he's stepping up further to be more than just a great overseas player. He's one of the best talents in the league in general, and his status as a foreign talent may have helped in developing his play style that doesn't match any other center in the NBA right now. That's because even if Jokic isn't as much of a pure scorer as Embiid, he's better at getting his teammates involved. And by the numbers, he's better at that job than even most of the point guards in that league who focus on passing the ball as their main skill set. 8 assists per game is a higher mark than most point guards are able to get, but Jokic has been able to reach this accomplishment while playing as a passing center. And he hasn't sacrificed his scoring and rebounding for this either, as he's pulling in around 11 rebounds per game at this point in the season also, and contributing about 26 points per game to Denver's total effort. That's not far off from all the numbers Embiid is putting up, and while Embiid does have an edge on him when it comes to scoring, it's not a wide margin, and Embiid is obviously much less of a passing center when compared to Jokic. If there's one thing holding Jokic back in the MVP race though, it might be the teammates he has around him. Denver's a good team, but in the tough Western Conference, they'll have to fight hard for position and compete with some more stacked teams such as the Lakers and the Clippers that have more superstars. The Nuggets mainly just have Jokic when it comes to elite caliber players, but the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and the Clippers have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. The Clippers even added the 6th man of the year, Montrezl Harrell, in a move that sent them forward from the Lakers to their crosstown rivals. Denver hasn't quite gotten better at the same pace, and if the team gets left behind in the standings, it could hurt Jokic's chances at taking home the award for best individual player. That's not to say that the Nuggets and Jokic don't have a chance. They did manage to defeat the Clippers last year in the playoffs in a series that they weren't expected to win, showing that they are for real and that they can take down a favorite with a roster that looks deeper at first glance. chance. But this season, other teams have also made improvements and will be more aware of the Nuggets as a threat. Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard has been the Finals MVP 2 times, and with 2 different teams at that. He was able to take home the award with the San Antonio Spurs and the Toronto Raptors to prove that he could win in 2 very different team situations and that he could develop his game over the years to fit his current surroundings. Obviously, things were different in Toronto the second time around than they were the first time in San Antonio. With the Raptors, Leonard wasn't playing with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, the big 3 that made up a huge part of their effort against the Miami Heat, and had been together for years before that to ultimately win multiple titles. He had to adapt to being the main player during the playoffs after his move to Toronto, especially because the Raptors traded away one of their biggest stars, DeMar DeRozan, in the move that acquired Leonard from the Spurs in the first place. After winning the Finals MVP award as the main star of the Raptors, the obvious next step for Leonard would be the MVP award for the regular season, which he hasn't yet been able to achieve. He has more help around him to do that compared to when he was with the Raptors, and that seems to be the main reason behind his move to the Clippers beyond heading back to his home region of Southern California. Leonard is competing so far with the other big-time scorers that are a part of the MVP race right now, but will need some other advantage to win the award over some other names that might be better pure scorers or better rebounders, or like in the case of Jokic, better passers. While Leonard isn't the leader in any of these main categories, he does have more steals per game than any of the other contenders and might be the best defender out of them, even including the centers Jokic and Embiid. Defense was largely how Leonard won his first Finals MVP award, and he's also won Defensive Player of the Year 2 times. It's been one of the hallmarks of his career, and if he wins the regular season MVP award this season, it will probably be because of his good all-around performance and his great defense with the Clippers. Anthony Davis. AD is one of the most accomplished players in the NBA to not have an MVP award to his name, but this season he'll have a chance to add that to his already lengthy list of accomplishments. He was able to win a ring in his first season with the Lakers and is a 7-time All-Star already, and has a total of 4 appearances on the All-NBA first team despite spending most of his career surrounded by the subpar talent in New Orleans. Davis also has the advantage of being on one of the most talented teams in the league. That's not to say that he isn't one of the most impressive players out there on the individual level, but being surrounded with talented teammates on a roster that includes players like LeBron James will make any player look better. Compared to someone like Nikola Jokic, there's just more talent around Davis to help set him up for good plays. In fact, it's almost the opposite with Jokic, who has done more to make his teammates in Denver look good with his frequent assists. However, the teammates Davis has won't be an advantage all the time in this race, because better talent also means better competition, and Davis will be up against fellow Laker LeBron James in the hunt for this specific award. And James has far more of a history ranking as one of the top finishers in the MVP race than Davis does, making him a major challenger.